You're listening to Inclusive AF with Jackye Clayton and Katie Van Horn.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Inclusive AF podcast. This is Jackye Clayton.
And this is Katie Van Horn.
I feel like you're making fun of me.
I see how I did that, Jackye. So
Yeah.
I did that. That's how you do it.
I'll
That's
work
the
on
right way. You have the 10-second pause between first and last names.
I'll work on that.
So our guest is trying to figure out what in the world we're talking about. Every time we
I'm
record,
taking notes. I'm just taking notes.
Jackye makes fun of me and does this whole like, I'm Jackye Clayton. And I'm like, okay, what are you trying to say here? So
you'll just be the witness at the best friend divorce court.
Oh no.
Witness.
So that's right, folks. We have a guest today, and first off, I don't even know where to start because like your bio and everything you've done is absolutely amazing. So we're gonna toss it over to you and let you like do the intro because I was like, as I'm scrolling, going, where do you even start with this? So please,
all the things.
No. Hi, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be on the podcast. My name is Omolara Thomas Uwemedimo. I am a Black Nigerian American woman from New York City here on stolen Lenape land, trying to live a free life, to be very succinct. I'm also a mom of two girls. I am a board certified pediatrician for 17 years, I think, at this point. And really have kind of just gone through a roller coaster of initially my work was really focused on global health and working abroad in Africa and Latin America, and ultimately became really steeped in research and academia, became an associate professor, ended up doing all of the things and burning out like completely, and really and then basically I had a revelation. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, multiple sclerosis, hospitalized, couldn't walk, and had to do physical rehab. And during that time, I think it's the best gift that God gave me because I had a life rehab and realized that I needed to shift my life. And so now I'm an entrepreneur of not one, but two businesses.
Whoa.
At the same time.
So that was you stepping back?
That's relaxing?
Stepping back. That's me relaxing. You look, it was like 5 jobs but getting paid only for one. So I went down to like 2. So
okay.
But yeah, so now I'm CEO and founder of 2 additional babies, additional to my own Strong Children Wellness, which is a company that I co-founded with my 2 partners who were also pediatricians, Black women who were tired of kind of being told what to do and really trying to create free healthcare spaces. I like to call them freedom spaces, not safe or brave spaces, but freedom spaces where we can see our communities be able to get everything they need: behavioral health, mental health services, physical health services, social services in one space and steeped in the community. And so we work with organizations and nonprofits to do that. And then the second work that I don't know how I got into this, is Melanin Medicine. And Melanin Medicine is a company that I founded initially to just support Black women physicians to find themselves, to pivot into their purpose and just regain their power. And over that time, through this process, have really learned that a lot of us have realized that we were called to actually create new spaces. And so helping them through business creation, and now most recently, supporting them to get funding to actually start these things and actually take advantage of the fact that there are a lot of good people still in the world who are wanting to, fund things, but don't know exactly how to do it or don't have the expertise to actually create it themselves. And so I'm supporting them to get their money and do this work and create the spaces that a lot of times we don't have inside of the institutions that exist. So that's me in a nutshell. I hope that covers it.
Yes, yes, it does. That's a lot. And I know there's more. So I'm so excited. I love Melanin Medicine. Looking at the podcast, and it's amazing that you're doing all of these things. So I'll thank you in advance for all of the people that you've touched and will touch in the future. We're lucky that you are taking this work.
Oh, thank you. And I have a team. Okay, remember, team.
So that's right.
Yes. Awesome.
So I think, I would love to so you're a pediatrician first, and, let's start there. What inspired you to start these other two businesses? Like, where did that come from? Like, what was the driver? Even just, well, first off, to become a doctor, like that alone is like a whole situation. And like, that's amazing. But what inspired you to create these two other entities, these two other businesses?
It's interesting because you said that I'm a pediatrician first, and that's actually part of the unlearning that I had to do, right? And it's very much the part of the training that we get, right? We now completely get like called doctor everything. Like I should be having my kids call me Dr. Mommy, right? By this point, or whatever. But like, and I think that was the piece that actually caused me to create these things. I think it was the fact that, as a Nigerian, I don't know how many Nigerians you've been around, but like there's only 3 jobs that we can have, one of them being a doctor. So it was kind of a crapshoot. But I think the other thing was my mom is a serial entrepreneur who would look at me almost in disgust at like, how can you just like do what these people, like you have so much that you can do on your own and you're not doing that. So I think that I was on a road where being a physician is very much tailored. Like it's like you do this, you do that, you do this, you do that. And I'm very good at following rules, and ultimately got to a point where I was not saying no to anything. And so that meant teaching as a professor. That meant running 2 large research projects, right, to support immigrant families and to support global health, directing a global health program, seeing patients. And I realized that I was at this point when I got hospitalized in May 2019, I had no clue why I was here. Like I was just doing things and I wasn't being. And I think those businesses were a chance for me to actually start to think about what's my purpose? What's the theme that has existed? And it's always been justice for me. It's always been that. And it was like, what is the zone of genius? I'm a builder. That's what I like to do. And what is it that you are meant to build? And that took a lot of closed time away from people to start to think about what is the vision? What would I regret not seeing, doing, becoming, or creating? And those 2 things, like not being able to tell other Black women kind of like slow down, stop, don't kill yourself. I now have a chronic autoimmune disorder that will stay with me for the rest of my life. And also just how can we help our people? And so when those 2 came up, I was like, well, what am I supposed to do about this? And these were ideas that got cultivated. And I said, I'm crazy enough to like try and make them real.
But it's so true, and it's so important. And I think so many of us, as we've been looking at situations looking at gender studies and racial studies and sexual identity, as we start looking at these subjects more as we get into it, we realize that when we talk about the system that has created this, it is so deep, and it's part of that same system. I feel like where we were told like you should be able to do everything, or you should be able to have it all, or if you want to be successful, you're going to have to do more. And then you can't even enjoy your success. I mean, you can't even have that space, And
Yeah.
so it's
Right.
weird how God will do that and say, okay, I'm gonna really need you to sit your ass down. Right.
That was
Like,
and that was the only thing that diagnosis was the only thing that would have done it. Like he was like, now you literally cannot walk. And because I brought my computer to the hospital. And then he was like, okay. And I opened it up.
Yeah. Boom.
That was
Now
like, you're
what?
not listening.
Right?
Let's
Yeah.
try this
Now
again.
what? Now
It was
what?
like, I can't walk, but I can still
I can type. Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. I'm good. I can't go to the bathroom by myself, but that's
Right.
okay.
What?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It took a lot.
Do you, so I'm going to, so you, with your background, and you said, hey, there are 3 roles that hey, this is the path you go down. And that's the, cultural expectations, family expectations, whatever you want to call it. Do you feel like that's why you were pushing so hard to do all of these things?
It's interesting because my name is Omolara, and Omolara is a Yoruba name in Nigeria, and it means the child is the family. I'm actually the 6th child of my mom, but the first to be born. And so she had 5 second trimester miscarriages before she had me. And that story, because when you're Omolara, it's like everyone knows like there was something happened, because that word, that it means like this child is. And so when I finally was old enough, my mom told me, and it wasn't old, I was told when I was young. I think there's a certain pressure additionally of like, wow, why wasn't I the 6th miscarriage? Like, and so I walk through life in a way of putting that pressure on myself. Like, I do believe, right, our system treats us to be human givers for women in general. And then as we move down the ladder of like less privilege, right, more and more giver, and less of being. And I think that there's a complicity as well. Like, we're socialized to do the same thing, right? We're socialized to do that to other people, and to see and to berate people who aren't like selfless for their kids and aren't doing this or whatever, right? And I think that ultimately it's been a mix. It's been a mix of my heritage, right? Of my birth story. It's been a mix of the society telling me I don't have value. My value is only by what I do and not who I am, right? And then it's been a mix of me being complicit in that and saying, okay, that's what it is. Okay, cool. Let me start like working, as much as possible. I'm going to show you I can do this, and this, and not, putting my foot down and really saying it. So I think it's a mixture of all of them. And I think all of them need to be addressed. And so therapy, of course, is helpful for my internal thing. But I think in addition, it really is helpful for us to now start to hear people becoming more vocal about, I think in medicine and healthcare in general, about that this is not safe, that, even a paycheck, I think I tweeted today something about a paycheck, and I said like, that a salary is not safety. That's not like, there's so much that of the weathering that happens for us as women that breaks us down that we can't see. And that like, if you go into the research, Black women are aging 7 years faster if you look at their chromosomes. And it's just I think it's extremely important for us to recognize that we have a role to play in this, in terms of being able to say that the system doesn't have to run without pushback and without our voices and without demanding that something change.
You're so right. And I think it was interesting. I can understand I have an autoimmune disease. I have alopecia, but it was different because I was like in full denial that stress had anything to do with it. Like, I was like, no. I'm like, okay, wait. Okay, well, hurry up and fix the stress because my hair's falling out. So if I could just not be stressed, and being in full of denial, even after that, still pushing and not believing that was the situation. And for me, it was a tweet from, or on Instagram, the nap ministry, where it was like, you can rest. And it was like one tweet just changed my life. And I share it, and it always sounds funny, but it's so true. Most of us don't give us the time. We don't give ourselves permission to rest as a point of healing. And you say rest as resistance is kind of their motto. And it's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I can't do that. But I mean, it's sad that that's what it came to in order to make you kind of think about those things different. But at the same time, inspirational that you were able to share that message with other people.
Yeah, I think that's the goal. Like the goal really for me was sitting there, it became urgent. And I always talk with a lot of the women now that are moving into entrepreneurship, and those, especially those that are wanting to get funds to like actually build their businesses, significant funds. I talk about kind of this like passion and anger, right? And it not being this like dangerous thing that you can't be, like looking at it and really being like, for me, the anger was at the fact that I didn't say anything. I was more concerned about everyone and what they would think, and not like, I didn't say, no, I didn't say, I can't do this. What is that person going to think? What is this person going to think? And I like allowed myself to just literally disintegrate. And I think that when you go through that, there's an urgency and a passion and an anger that is now like, no one else is going to have to go through this at all. No one else is going to have a mental health or physical health breakdown in order for them to see the light. No, we don't need to follow that path. And it was just about figuring out, how am I going to do that? I don't really know. Exactly.
Well, I think oh, go ahead. Sorry. No, I'm good.
One of the things, you just mentioned is kind of what are other people going to think? And I think that's one that kind of, it is for all females, it's constantly that pressure of someone's going to judge the way I'm doing this, or that, you mentioned parenting, am I cutting up my sandwiches without the crust for my kids, or, whatever ridiculousness we put on ourselves. And, I think part of that also is when you do stop and the world doesn't fall apart, and you go, oh, wait, it's actually okay.
Yeah.
And my people are still my people, and they know what's going on, and it's okay. And I don't need to worry about the rest of these folks. And I think that's such a great piece. And I love what you said about doing, not being, and just the whole idea around, are you actually being, are you actually in it? Or are you just going through the motions? Are you just doing these things? And, I would love to hear more about just that whole concept.
Yeah, it's interesting because it started, there are like a number of books. I'm an avid reader that I just was like, oh my God, I have 4 months of medical leave. I'm a workaholic. I'm going to die. Like, I'm going to die. Like, I am going to die. But books saved my life. But one of them that was really cool was Emily and Amelia Nagoski's book, Burnout. And I loved it because they mentioned this human giver syndrome, and they mentioned, right, it's that like urge for us to like be seen as like pretty, generous, kind, nice, wonderful, like, and at all costs, to our detriment. And in order to do that, in order for that syndrome to like take hold, we have to do that to other women too. Like, we have to, like, so that everyone follows suit. Like, women are supposed to be that, right? And if not, you're going to not only, berate other people, but you're going to berate yourself as well. You're going to be like, oh, why didn't I do that? And I think the doing part is really this piece where I'm a big doer. As you know, I have like 2 businesses I love to do, but if I'm not making the space to be, I've realized that doing, it doesn't have the impact that I know it could, right? And so for me, that's looked like naps in the middle of the day. Multiple sclerosis, the biggest symptom is fatigue. Go figure, God is very funny. And so like, really, that had to be the symptom. So, and so I have to find spaces. And I remember going to my job and being like, you know what, I would like, you know, I know I have 5 jobs and I only get paid for one, but this is what I was thinking. This is what I was thinking. Okay. You know, I'm not gonna leave. This is what I was thinking. Could we just like package it as like one job and maybe just have someone who could like help support me? And it was like, no, we don't, that doesn't sound. And it was then that the button clicked that in order for me to stay alive, I would have to save myself. No one was coming. No one was coming to be like, yeah, of course. Like, it was going to have to be me fighting for myself. And that's the thing. I don't think I could have done that if I didn't have those 4 months to be and realize how valuable being, because I had so much to do. I had a vision of what I wanted the world to look like. And if I wasn't resting, if I wasn't like pouring back in, that would never come to pass. And so I think, and my kids, like, they are like shady. Like, they'll be like, I don't see you sleeping, mom. You went to bed at this time. And so they keep me in check, of course, because it's hard. And I feel like it's what is it? It's not Alcoholics Anonymous, but we have to figure out another word where it's like, you literally like fall off the wagon and continue. But I think as long as you remember that being like is who is the most important part, and doing is not, right? You know, and doing is just an after, like a beautiful result if you can like really work on being.
Wow. I that, and it takes a lot of courage to be able to do that. I can only imagine. I'm wondering, because I know that there are people listening that are like, but I went to school for this and I've been planning my whole life for this. And who am I if I'm not, fill in the blank with whatever word do. What do you do when, because you coach people when they're making that career transition, and what do you say when people, you know, how do you help people reconcile that?
Yeah. I think it's really helping them to dissociate, right? You like ultimately I could have been like, hey, I'm a pediatrician. Like, no, I'm not. Like, that's something I do, right? That's not who I am. And unfortunately, the way medicine succeeds in its traditional Western form is that you have to be that person because you are like, nothing comes before that, right? And that's a great thing, like for emergency care, right? We want to be able to be like, okay, patient in front of me, no, I'm not going to take a lunch break right now. This is like important, right? But in terms of thinking about how we live our lives and making sure, okay, we do have time to take the lunch break. Now the emergency's over. And we, you know, I think remembering like who I am, remembering I'm a mom, remembering I'm a sister, remembering I'm those things. And so when I talk to the women that I work with, we start out with thinking about like, what is it that's brought you joy? Like, and starting to go back, just go to the past a little bit. Cause I think we don't take enough time to just reflect. And then they usually are like, oh God, this is cool. Like, I don't have time for this. This is like, give me the to-do. And it's like, hold on, just give me 5 minutes. And we're sitting there and we're like, what, like, give me some of those positive moments. What have been those like beautiful moments that you think, like thinking back. And as they do that work, you start to recognize there's a theme to what you find meaningful. Like, and it's going to be different for all 3 of us and whoever. Like, you're going to see the things that are meaningful to you and the things that are positive. We want to capture that and we want to figure out what that theme is. And then we want to figure out where are we going with that? Like, what, like, it's like driving in a car, right? And not knowing where you're going, and think about the anxiety. And so many of us are doing that. We're like driving, looking at the rear view mirror. Like, you know, we don't know where we're going. We're just like, well, I did like that yesterday, so I'll just do it like that again. And when you now have that vision and you're able to see, this is what brings me meaning and joy, and this is how I want it to manifest in 15 years from now. This is what I would love my life to look like. It may look different, but this is what I think I would love to look like. Then you can now make steps and say, okay, is this going to get me there? No. Okay, let's peel that off. Is this going to get me there? Yes. Okay, let's go in on that. And it just helps you to make better decisions. So I think the vision, and the other piece is the values, and just being values first has been really important. And it's so often like when I ask people, I'm like, what are your 5 core values, right? And they're like, never thought about that. I now know those, like, because it helps me with every decision I make. I'm like, yeah, this is absolutely not aligned with any of these things. I'm gonna have to say a no. I'm gonna have to live in a no.
Well, we are in the month of no. It is November.
November.
Jackye, yeah,
Exactly.
Jackye has been posting about this, that now is the time. And I love that idea of just, kind of sitting down and thinking about what has brought you joy in the past. And even just as you were talking, I started thinking, like, what are those things for me? And I think just even having that conversation or taking that time to sit and think about what those things are, like, that changes, as you said, kind of the trajectory of where are you going? What do you want to do? What do you want to bring joy, or how do you want to bring joy in the future? So that's awesome. I love that. There are so many, I'm like, I don't even know where to go next.
Do you smell toast?
There's so many things. For reals. Well, no, there's so many things. And as I was reading more about you and learning more about you, I think the pieces that the coaching piece and what you're doing for other women, and you've already talked about that a little bit, but can you share a little bit about kind of what has that been like? What are those things that what are the outcomes that have been special to you and impactful to you as you're doing this work?
Yeah, foremost has been community. I think I haven't recognized how isolated. Now I'm a high introvert. Like, I love me alone time and a book. Like, I am good for days. It's actually very, very bad. Like, people look at me and they're like, bordering on antisocial over there. But I'm like, I'm good. But the community that you see, like, women were just like, I didn't know that it wasn't just me. Like, I now realize that, like, I'm validated in the struggle that I had, but 2, like, I can see people moving forward with their business or with their, like, self-discovery, or, and then I'm like, ooh, I could do it. Like, she's doing it. I could do that. And so I think that community piece has been absolutely amazing. I think the other piece is just, like, starting to take ownership of our lives, right? I think that there is a lot to be said. Zora Neale Hurston, God, I love Zora Neale Hurston because she was gangster. And she said, like, it was so interesting because I remember that she said, like, if you don't say anything, right, they will, like, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it, right? Yep. And it's like, yep. Oh, yeah. Whoa. Okay. Yes. And I think that it's really important. One of the things that I feel like is for them to own their power again, like, to understand that, if I say no, if I say yes to me, right, that is not against anyone else, but it's going to be to the betterment of my family, my community, my society. And so just, I think the ownership of people seeing things, and I just love a builder. I love people who, like, I love taking things and making them 2D on paper and then seeing them become 3D. And I think what's been really exciting for women is to do that, like, to say, this was an idea. And now, I remember one of our women who started in August, she went to one of our workshops, and then she was like, I think I'm going to go into your program. And I came to the program, and, like, I think the week before she started the program, she was like, oh, I got a client. I was like, okay, all right, here we are. Yes, okay, cool. And then, like, as we're doing it, like, it was literally just the fear. Like, she just had to feel like it was possible. And then, she's just in the midst of it. And now we're building, like, after, right? We're building everything on top of it. But I just think being able to empower, I think women, of course, empower themselves, but I think being able to provide information for them to do that has been really exciting, and seeing what they're building is always like joy to me, because I feel like I'm serving all of these other people because I hopefully was a part of the journey for them.
And you absolutely were part of the journey. I feel like people have to see that example and sometimes need that validation in another person to say, I'm going to be okay. Like, and why we share these stories, and we might get there in different ways, but it empowers people to hear your story and know that you were able to readjust and pivot into what's really important. Because I think a lot of people go down these paths and they don't know, you lose sight because of somebody else's goal for you or somebody else's story for you of what you're going to be.
Again, Jackye.
You think so? For the people in the back.
In the back, yeah. In the overflow room.
Yeah, in the overflow. That's right. In the middle chairs. Because people will do it for you. They will absolutely, and they have to see those examples. Sometimes people are just sitting there waiting to see how it's going to turn out, to see if they make those choices. And unfortunately, especially now, it could be too late. It could be too late. Yeah. And I think that's the part that has been interesting in watching your journey, because you have been connecting with so many people. And I don't know if you know that, but in my research, you inspire a lot of people. Did you know that? I mean, you're doing it.
It's crazy because in the past 2 years, like I told you, I'm a high introvert, right? So in the past 2 years, it's just been crazy to just be in this space where I'm just like, I'm going to get to know all these people, and like, we're just gonna like, this is the funniest part, I think for you guys as podcasters too. You do these episodes, right? And I do a lot of solo episodes. I used to do a lot of guests, and I'm mixing back and forth, and I do a lot of solo. And then I like will connect with someone. They're like, oh yeah, and I love your podcast. And I'm like, oh shoot, people listen to that?
Yes!
Oh,
all the time.
All of the time.
Right?
Yes.
And you're like,
yes.
Oh, no.
What did I say in that episode? Ooh. Yeah.
Someone
was it okay?
Once, they said, can I ask you a question? And they said, never mind. I listened to your podcast and got all the answers. And I was like, which one? Because I'm looking for the answers. Like, was it good? Awesome.
we just got we are now in a partnership of podcast group, and we're having to go back and like listen to episodes. And I was telling Jackye the other day, I'm like, some of it I'm like, oof, I don't know, but then others I'm like, wowzers, like this is an amazing conversation. Like,
I'm like, we are
so
smart.
God bless you. I still haven't had the courage to like listen to anything. Like, I'm just like, nope, not at all.
Go back to like your third podcast, and you're like, wowzers, trousers, like what?
Our intros
are bad.
On that one, it's like, ooh, maybe we should.
Yeah, the intros are the best. That's awesome.
But you do have that. I couldn't imagine doing it by yourself, but you're inspired, and the messaging, and just looking at some of the titles and some of the things that you've looked into.
Yeah, I think there's this space of finally, like you said, I think, so we have this boot camp, it's called Own Your Power, right? And the first thing that I wanted to tackle in the boot camp was letting go of what other people think. That was the first thing. And because that was the first thing I had to tackle to even like get on that, to start the podcast. And I think it's been a huge like journey every day, because as you move to a different level, right, you've gotten over what some people think, but now there's new people that you're like, well, what will they think? And then it's like, and you're like, oh God, here we go again. But I think it's so important for us to really like fight that with every breath in our body. Like, because the vulnerability piece, like I've also had these moments where people are like, I just like want to say, I know you don't know, but I just want to say thank you for like saying that, because that was so important, especially on Twitter. Like on Twitter, I don't even know like why people follow me, first of all. On Twitter, I'm just like I okay, cool. Like, here we go. But it's just been, and a lot of people is very funny. Like there's a few people who are in institutions and they're like, Omolara, I just wanted to, like, they'll DM me. I want to let you know that I really like your tweet. I just can't like do it because there's people who might see me like it. And I'm like, you do you, that's okay. Like, but it's just very, I think it's beautiful to know, like, when you are sharing yourself, like there's gonna be people who are like, oh, I don't want to see that. But then there's all these people who are like, oh my gosh, I could do that too. And now I can share my voice. And that's so important in terms of protecting ourselves at this point, right? We have to leverage our voices.
Absolutely. We do have to leverage our voices. It's funny that you said that, especially on social and being an introvert, because you're by yourself in your room. You woke up at 6 o'clock and you're like, you know what? Tap, 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 tap. Enter. You forgot all about it. That's later.
Exactly it. Are you in my house? Yes. How do you know that's exactly what happened? I'm like, but God, no, this is a little, okay, fine. Okay. I'm just gonna, and then I'm like, oh shoot, I did type that. That wasn't a dream. Yes.
But so many people, I mean, you have to feel like it is inspired of listening to that inner voice. And I think that's part of being concerned about what people think. Sometimes it's how we view ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. Like that voice inside your head, and you have to let it go. And it's funny, I started a job recently, and before the interview process, the person said, I listened to your podcast and I've seen your webinars and I follow you on Twitter. And I was like, okay, do you want to hire me? Like,
do you still want to have this conversation?
And it's like, no, like I see it. I'm like, oh, okay. But then, like you're saying, you never know who you might touch. And you have to feel like it's divinely inspired to share some of those things. But I think that is kind of been at least part of your journey, because you didn't just stop for 4 months and then start sleeping and baking. You didn't turn off everything.
No.
She said she's baking now. Are you baking?
I did. No,
I might have missed that.
I didn't say it, but you are in my so I did bake. I am not a baker. I did bake on Sunday for like my kids. Like I forget why my 6-year-old is very like, she's been here before. You know how we say that? And also, she's been here before. So she was like, Mom, you know what? Like, we never have any quality time anymore. And I just love cooking, but I guess I'll just, like watch people cook on YouTube. That's the kind of Nelly. That's who I'm dealing with. That's my that's what I have to deal with. So
she's not playing.
So I was like, well, maybe on Sundays we can do something together. I don't know how the words came out. I was like, oh, stop saying this. And she's like, awesome. Can we bake cookies? And I'm like, don't you know who your mom is?
You're like, can we sit quietly and read together?
Yeah, in the same room.
And I baked me some cookies on Sunday, and it was absolutely like fantastic, actually, in the hindsight. But I was like, and so so I'm a baker, I guess. Like they tasted good too.
Nice. Yes. Love it.
So I should let you know when I come in town. You'll bake cookies, and we'll snack out. Maybe no.
Okay, time out. So, all right. So we're going to go. So where is the best pizza in New York City?
Oh my God. I don't know that.
Come on now.
I don't know.
Because I tell you why I asked the question, because Jackye and I were in New York.
That's right.
This is pre-COVID, pre-lockdown, pre all the things. And we went to Little Italy and had a fantastic, phenomenal meal. But we were talking about where's the best pizza. And I found a great pizza place in Brooklyn when I was staying there one time. But where is the best pizza in New York City, in your opinion?
Well, it's right here, like, 3 minutes away.
Your daughter makes it? My 6-year-old's pizza.
It's 3 minutes away in the shopping center right next to my house. No, it's like you can't I don't know, in New York, like it's just, there's so much good pizza, like you can't pick, like you're gonna find good pizza. It's not hard. I'm in Long Island, so we're good, like we're great over here. But yeah, it's a hard question. Look, as long as you're in New York, thank God, you're gonna get some
pizza.
good pizza.
It's gonna be all right.
It's gonna be fine.
We passed 3,000 pizza places on the way.
Legitimately 3,000 at least.
Yeah, like
yes,
we Uber.
for sure.
It was like
this is a really important lesson for people, like especially like as a business coach. It's like, because people are like, oh well, she's doing it already, or she's doing this, and I'm like, this is great. Like what you just said. There's literally 4 on the same block who are like, no, but my pizza,
right.
Don't worry. There's enough for everyone. There's enough for everyone.
Everyone needs a slice every time. So you said you're a reader. What are you reading right this minute?
Oh my God. Okay.
I was gonna say, are you a stacker like I am, where there's like 4 going on at the same time? Correct. And you don't even want to talk about it because you're like, I can't right now?
It feels, I don't know. It feels like people think I'm joking, but I'm not. Like, so I'm reading Untamed again right now. I'm reading The Art of the Start, which is by Guy Kawasaki. And then
I love Guy Kawasaki, by the way. I'm a huge Guy Kawasaki fan since way back.
Oh my God.
Love Guy Kawasaki.
And then I'm also reading You Are Your Best Thing right now. Yes. With Tarana Burke and Brene Brown. Mm-hmm. And then I'm reading How I Built This, the book by Guy Raz right now. And last thing that like actively I'm reading, I had it here, was the Get Good with Money book with Tiffany Aliche. Yeah. So that's
she's
what
the
I'm
budget
right now.
budgetista, right? Yes. Oh, she's amazing. Yeah.
Those are the things I'm reading right now, in addition to like workbooks for my 6 and 9-year-old.
Right.
And now cookbooks as well. Clearly, yeah.
I'm like shivering as I think about Sunday. I'm like, oh, you're like, God.
Just ordered some Martha Stewart cookbooks as well.
I was like, no, she's gonna ask me to cook again.
Well,
for anyone listening, if you can make sure you send any baked good recipes,
that's right.
And we'll be sure to pass those along.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jackye.
You need it. No, I was just saying I have started doing the opposite. I had made the declaration as my children were going to college that I was stopping everything. And so my spouse, #executive producer, who rocks in the middle of all of my things, has been cooking all the meals and gives me alerts of the status of the dishes. I don't know why, because it's not making me move. It's just a status update. Like
and then he will like bring in eggs while I'm sitting here in Arizona going, where's my executive producer? That's right. My puppy can't make eggs. No. So Todd is on my list of
Yes.
So my husband is like, he holds everything down. Like I'm like, people are like, did the kids get fat? I don't know. That's
they're still living.
Yeah, ask my husband. Like, why are you asking me? Like, he's gonna know. Like, did the laundry get done? I don't know. Ask my husband. Like,
okay, can we talk about that for a minute? Because so I love that you just brought that up, because I think this is something that we know, obviously, that a lot of women have stepped back in their careers because of the pandemic, and which is such an unfortunate situation. But I want to just talk about like domestic chores and how those are balanced in couples, because I think there is such an imbalance, as we all know, but it sounds like you have the right balance. in my opinion.
It might be imbalanced to other people because I'm like ironing, laundry, like, but then I'm like, I'm virtual schooling. So I'm like, boom, like,
That's
okay.
a lot. Yeah, payback. It's full payback.
And he completely was like, okay, yes, you have the ace. Like, so
he said, I made dinner, right? And then
I will do everything else. And so that's really exciting. But I totally agree. Like, I think even with me right now and working with them, I had to be that good enoughist, right? I had to be like the person who was like, okay, they can read. Like we're like, we're doing what we can here, and it's okay. They're going to be okay. And I think I had to recognize that why was I trying to push myself to potentially, like, we have a housekeeper, he arranges that. Like, I don't even know when she comes or whatever. He just makes sure that happens. But I had to recognize for my kids' sake as well, because I have two girls. I have two little Black girls, and Lord knows what they think, a mom should do. But because they see certain things. But I think it's really important when we talk about the doing, the being, and we talk about all this, it's like about legacy. And it's really about like ensuring that my girls know that they can just be free. Like, my girls now are like, oh, this is the business that I'm gonna buy, or I'm gonna do that. Like, that wasn't even a concept, even though my mom was an entrepreneur. She never talked about it with me, right? And there was one live that I did or something, and my 6-year-old took over and was like, I'm gonna teach you guys about burnout and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna listen or whatever. And it's just, I think it's really to see the division in the roles domestically, and to see and to have like to have more expanded views of what is possible for people, just regardless of gender. I think is less about now and more about the future, right? So that these homes like that people grow up in, hopefully there's less of that kind of like pressure, and people can start to be more creative about, okay, I need to take care of myself, and what's the best way to do that?
And do the best you can with what you have, and be okay to let go of those things. I mean, if for those parents, yourself included, parents of younger children, especially those that have those chores, I can tell you, like, I promised that I was going to cut my kids' sandwiches in shapes until they went to middle school. And I did. And they still hated me when they grew up. So just give it up. Square is the shape that you get, or triangles. Those are your choices, because you try to kill yourself over this and realize you think you're doing it to make somebody else happy. Meantime, you're both miserable, and they want to spend time with you as you're trying to configure an elephant out of a PBJ. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous. And you don't want to end up getting sick, or the loss of someone to realize. So many people do that. They're trying to make a way for them to enjoy themselves, that they're not enjoying themselves now.
So good. That happened with my kids with dance classes. I was a dance class, like dance. And so I was like, yeah, of course they're gonna. And they did 2 years and 3 years of dancing. And then they were like, I just raised their hand. Mom, I just want to let you know I don't actually want to do this. And it was like, oh, okay. One is a gymnast, one's a swimmer now. Like, and they just like are all of that, right? And then I'm, of course, the chauffeur. But like outside of that, but I think it's like you said, that space of being able to be like, let's step back and stop, like, trying to micromanage every part of this, because what are other people going to think? And then it like gives that space for what's supposed to happen to actually grow, rather than suffocating it. So yeah, I'm just grateful for, I know I'm privileged in the fact that, okay, I have the opportunity to work from home. I have the opportunity to have a partner who is like pretty flexible, like to say the least. And I have those things. And so I think our goal as people who have those privileges is to start to think about how do we make it, what can we do in our lives to make that not be a prerequisite for living your life, in a free way, right? How can we develop that, and how can we teach our kids to also have that like communal like sense of connection with everyone, and to recognize those differences and what they're going to do about it.
Yep.
Yeah,
I love that.
Exactly.
All right, my friends. We have come to that time where I need to ask you the most important question. Well, second most important question. The first one was the pizza question.
And I did horribly on that one. So
no. Actually, you answered it perfectly. It's stop anywhere in New York for pizza. It's all good.
You will get into a fights here. Like, we are all about our boroughs.
She's like, I can't answer that.
Like, I will get into it. Like, the Queens people, they don't like the Brooklyn people, don't like
doctor missing in New York City that stood for social justice in front of a Sam's pizzeria. Like, we don't want anything like that.
It's awesome. Difficult in these streets here. So, yes.
The pizza wars are for reals in New York. Okay, so the question that we ask at the end of each episode is, what is one thing you want to make sure our listeners hear, have heard, or take away from this conversation? So, what would you like to make sure our listeners get out of this?
I think that I think it's that first question that I asked, like, just sit and ask yourself kind of like, in 15 years, I want you to just sit with that. What would I regret not doing, seeing, creating, or becoming? I think it just allows for you to start moving into different spaces that you haven't even thought about, and to let yourself go there, I think, is to make some time for yourself to go there. I think that's really, really important. Really important.
Awesome. Jackye?
Take care of yourself, because if not, God or your ancestors or karma or Holy Spirit, whatever you want to refer to it, will make you do it. Mm-hmm. If you can't do it on your own, it always finds a way to put you down, and it's not going to be on your terms that way. And you can feel better as much as you want to control things by loosening those things and letting things happen naturally. So you don't, otherwise you could get sick or hurt.
Awesome. Mine is the freedom spaces, which is right up top of this. Yeah, I love that concept of just, doing the things that you need to do to create that space where you can be free and you can have agency, make the decisions that make sense. And like that I took a lot of notes because that's what I do, because I'm a nerd. But I think that one just really resonated. And I mean, so many of the things that you shared, the doing, not being, sitting down and really, as you said, sitting down and thinking about what brings you joy, what will you reflect on later, and then also sitting down and taking the time to figure out what are those 5 core values that you have. I think those are, so this is what happens every time. It's not really one. It never is one.
Never one.
Actually, Jackye, I'm very impressed because you did stick to one this time. So I'm very impressed.
I got
with
it,
you. Yeah. You nailed it this time. Me, not so much, all over the place. All right, then. Let's wrap this up, party people. Thank you so much for joining us. We are, very fortunate to be able to have these conversations with just amazing folks, and we appreciate you taking the time. So thank you. This is Katee Van Horn.
And this is Jackye Clayton.
And this is the Inclusive AF Podcast. Bye.
Bye.